This has been a long ordeal. I know many of the conversations I've had over the last several days have been wondering when, if ever, we might come to a conclusion of what has been a lengthy process over the last 2 weeks now since this matter first emerged, when just prior to the Thanksgiving recess, the distinguished majority leader, among others, invited the automobile industry to present plans by December 2nd to the United States Congress on how they might restructure their industry in a way that would allow us to step forward and try to preserve and allow them to exist for a few more weeks while a broader plan could be devised that would allow them to possibly survive. And as my colleagues may know, over the last several weeks we've had a number of hearings on the matter. The presiding officer at this point is a member of my committee, along with others who have been very diligent in sitting through long hearings, on an average of 5 or 6 hours apiece, to listen to all of the various ideas. And as the Republican leader pointed out, it's a very complex subject matter. And to be asking this institution a matter of days to try and understand this highly complex industry and all of the ramifications of it, given the precarious nature of it, I think all appreciate at this juncture that we are looking at least one, maybe two, of the three automobile manufacturers that have existed for almost a century in our country. At a time of great economic peril, when the confidence and optimism of our country is at risk, we run the risk over these days of watching this industry disappear. The blow to the American consciousness and confidence and capability is beyond economic terms, if that occurs. Now, I pray this evening that will not happen. No one can say with absolute certainty it will. But we have been warned, we have been cautioned by those whose jobs it is to analyze this industry that have told us that could happen. We will leave here tonight, we'll go home for the holiday recesses, but for the literally hundreds of thousands of people whose jobs depend upon this industry, this will not be a joyous season, wondering whether or not their jobs, their livelihoods, their homes, their children's futures are at risk because we were incapable of coming up with an answer to provide a period of time here to allow intelligent, solid, good, hardworking people to put together a plan to save the American automobile industry. It is disheartening to me, to put it mildly, that we're unable to come to that agreement. And let me just say very candidly, Bob Corker is someone I've come to appreciate immensely as a member of my committee. We've worked very well together over these last year on many complicated issues. And I appreciate immensely his effort, as he did again this evening, to try to come to a conclusion where we could at least agree on something to move forward. There were three major issues my friend from Tennessee brought to me. I won't go into great detail in limited time. I'll wait until tomorrow, if time prevails, to go into a longer discussion of this. Of the three issues, we agreed on two, almost immediately. On the third, involving the parity with compensation of the domestic automobile industry and those of the foreign competitors doing business here, we could not come to closure. And the issue simply came down to this. There was no debate, by the way, from the United Auto Workers or anyone else, that we ought to achieve parity in those wages and benefits. The question was the timing of it. We are in a deep recession. People are being laid off. Bank of America announced today 35,000 people will be laid off. Industry after industry is dropping its employees. The idea that you're going to have new hires replace the active employees in a time like this is difficult, to put it mildly. So the notion somehow that within days or weeks after March 31st of this year, that this would mandate parity between those wages of domestic companies and foreign companies was the stumbling block. And so the President of the United States, the other body, Democrats and Republicans, as well as the auto workers, the heads of these companies came together, and for 8 days we negotiated an agreement. And it was painful. And it's not perfect by a long shot, but it allowed us to get to next year to begin to work on this in a way that might make it possible for this industry to survive. And tonight, regretfully, despite the efforts of the White House, people here, people in the other body, obviously, workers, as well as managers, we have stumbled this evening, unable to make this closure on this issue that allow us to go forward. So, Mr. President, I I'm deeply saddened by this, but more than saddened, I'm worried this evening of what we're doing with an iconic industry. None of us here are going to write a check without conditionality. This bill that I have drafted, along with others, is some 36 pages long and filled with conditions, establishing a czar chosen by this President of the United States, not the coming one, to oversee this and say you must meet these obligations if you're going to survive. His determination will determine whether or not the industry could go forward. If the czar were to say you have not complied, bankruptcy would entail. Chapter 11 and candidly Chapter 7. It would be nothing more than a liquidation of this industry. But we ought to try and avoid that. I thought most of us felt that was a bad outcome. In fact, I know my friend from Tennessee believes that as I do. The outcome of that will cost the American taxpayer billions of dollars, by the way. And that's very well where we may end up this evening. So I regret deeply, and I'm saddened by it, worried about it, that in the midst of already deep and troubling economic times, we are now going to add to that substantially by walking away from this over an issue of whether or not we could agree that parity between these wages and benefits could be achieved without slamming it down in such a way as to make it difficult for us to achieve the result. Out of the three issues, we agreed on 2 3/4, but unable to come to closure on this one, which frankly, in my view, was not an economic issue, but a political one. Because we're not demanding this of dealers, of suppliers, of anyone else. The only group we've asked this of are the workforce. No one else in this bill is required on a date certain to meet any other obligations, just this one. And yet we fully understand economically how hard that could be to demand that kind of accountability and not trust a czar or a leader working with the industry and others to reach that agreement. So to the Majority Leader, I say thank you. To your staff, to the Banking Committee staff, to my friend Bob Corker, to the members of the House, Republicans and Democrats, to the White House, which has been tremendously helpful in these last few days on trying to put this together without all of us agreeing. And yet, despite all of that this evening, we will not get cloture. This will fail. We'll go home. And I'm afraid our country is going to be in deeper, deeper trouble because of this issue. And I regret that deeply. I say that to the leader, and I thank you, and I yield the floor.